Well, Chris, 80,000 members is obviously a really exciting day for the club.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even in the context of our history as a footy club over 150 years, the 10 or 12 years that I've been here is just a small slice, but I can still vividly remember thinking, little Geelong's got 40,000 members, and what an amazing achievement that is with a capacity of 20-odd thousand at the ground. So to get to 80, and the way that not just the Geelong community, but the whole Geelong Football Club community, which is really Australia-wide and even further in some cases, have embraced us, is something that we'll always be grateful for. 65% of our membership resides outside of Geelong, so we're no longer just the little town an hour outside of Melbourne. We are quite rightly as a club proud of being a national brand. It's only a small step too. The club's got big ambitions to get to 100,000 members, and we just got to make sure we do our part and play a style of football that everyone wants to watch.
So you're holding a baby on the boundary. You're not a politician, so what was that about?
Well, I didn't kiss the baby, so that baby's father was our 80,000th member. Lives just up the road in Geelong. Actually grew up not far from me in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, so we had a good chat. It's nice hearing those stories. A couple of kids similar age to mine. It's nice to put a sort of face to the members and have a bit of a chat. It's we had 100 or so members down today to watch training. Yeah, it's a bit of a nice moment for the club.
Gear out for the Scott Cup tomorrow night.
Yeah, can't wait.
Like to talk about
yeah, no, let's spend a bit of time on it.
It is a novelty for the rest of us though, watching two twins coach against each other. Is there any kind of extra excitement from your perspective?
Honestly, it's not excitement, but I've learnt over the years, and we've had to learn this pretty quickly. As kids, always being compared, and we got to the stage pretty quickly where it never really bothered us too much, but it took me a while to kind of move past the fact that it didn't bother me, to understand that it is a novelty for other people. We get asked all the time, what's it like to be a twin? And my brother always says, what's it like not to be? I think I said before he agreed to get back into the game that he should think sort of long and hard about it. And that's kind of the serious side to it. I guess we just look at it from the perspective that we don't coach against each other. I've never thought I've coached against the opposition team's coach. We just got an obligation to our players first and foremost in our club. I respect what they're doing. One of the downsides is him coming back was I was pretty confident he'd improve the club that he went to, and so that's the part that's on my mind this week, rather than the novelty of it all.
He obviously has improved that club. They're doing very well at the moment. What do you see those challenges as this weekend?
Yeah, it's multifaceted. They've just become a team that, to our observation, that have different ways of beating you, and that they're always the hardest teams to play against when you take away one part of their game and there's another part that bobs up. They seem to be consistent, across all areas playing. But look, this is not unique to them. I think across the competition, there's very few teams, if any, that you sort of look at and think they've just got gaping holes that we'll be able to exploit. So then it comes down to making sure that we concentrate on our game enough. But their midfield's really strong. I could go through their whole team, but I think what it boils down to is that fundamentally they're sound, and it's not a matter of us exploiting any obvious weaknesses. We've just got to play our game as well as we possibly can, and back that's going to be enough.
Jeremy Cameron back in the side this weekend. How good is it to have him?
Yeah, we would have loved to have had him back last week, but I guess it gives us some. You always come away from a game when you've chosen not to play a guy, and if you win it, you feel a bit better about the scenario. So hopefully he'll be better, even better this week than he would have been last week, and that's probably more, a function of the extra training he's been able to get in, and his he always looks good on track. So I'm not saying that this isn't any sort of outlier, but whenever the players, see him doing what he can do on the track, it always gives them a bit of confidence that we should get the ball to him a bit on the weekend if we can.
No Asava or Zach Tui this weekend. Is it specific issues with them, or is it the sort of reverting back to the management sort of style you've played at the end of last season, just tapering off at the back end of the season?
Yeah, we think we're finally getting to the stage with our availability that we can start this process a little bit, and it's hard to walk through every single situation because they're all a little bit different. I mean, broadly, we do try to manage our players in general, particularly the ones who are a bit more experienced like Zach Tui, but the thing that always trumps it is when a player has a specific issue. College Asney probably could have played last week, but he had a bit of an issue that we thought he would be better for having a week off. And Radigalia, he's in the situation where he had a serious hamstring injury, has made a successful return, had a couple of weeks back, and we really want to kind of solidify a bit of strengthening work and his preparation to make sure he's bulletproof for the last 6 home and away games or whatever it is. We'll continue to do that. And we would have in the first half of the year as well. We just didn't have the availability to do it. So, again, every situation is slightly different, but it's nice to have, the ability to do that and still feel really confident with the team we're picking.
Are there temptations to not rest these players in sort of important games like against Essendon, who are also fighting for a spot in the 8?
I understand the question, but we wouldn't do it if we thought that it was going to significantly impact our chances of playing near our best. And when I talk about availability, it's more a situation where, and I'm not, Tui and Radigalia have clearly been in our best team all year, but we think their replacement players are really high quality as well. So, I've said a number of times, it's worth saying again, we just think less about where we are on the ladder and who we're playing and more about how we can get ourselves in the best shape for later in the year.
Minus 100 this weekend. It's been a really different year for him in terms of the role he plays in the side. How have you seen how he's taken to that sort of more of a selfless role, I guess, when it comes to the team approach?
Yeah, if I go way back, he came to our club, didn't play a senior game in his first year, and I don't mind saying this publicly because I said it to him and the rest of the players. To my eye, he was quite a way off, being a consistent AFL player, but his improvement and his work rate and his commitment to the team has just been amazing. And now I think he is getting a little bit more recognition for the role he plays within the team. He's, in my opinion, one of the best goal assist players in the competition. And it's just never occurred to him or to us that he might not embrace his role. He's just always been that type of guy. It's like, what do you need me to do and I'll get it done. He's very reliable. I probably shouldn't pause for too long on the 100th game because I get the sense it's just a milestone along the way that will be thought about less when he passes 150 and 200 and 250. He's that good.
There's talk that he should be up for All-Australian selection, but there's a difficulty given he's, I guess, technically a small forward, but he's not necessarily contributing that much on the scoreboard. How do you see that discussion? Yeah,
I'm not really across the discussion, but I know it has been talked about, and it's an interesting thought experiment that the All-Australian team really should pick a team that values the specific roles within that team as opposed to just picking the best players. And I guess the hard part of that, I'm glad I'm not a selector because you might be faced with the challenge of saying, well, we want that type of position, so Brian Myers is the best in the comp at that, but we're going to have to leave out Petraka because otherwise he would be in that position. It's like, I kind of get why they picked Petraka. But yeah, maybe they should go through that process internally and sort of think a little bit more about if we were, and I think they sort of have to an extent, pick a team as if we're playing another team, and therefore you need guys who play that high forward role and you need guys who are specialist wingers. They might say it. I don't think land in that spot regularly. But again, it's not something I give a lot of thought to. But I think what the point that I would like to reinforce is that it's fair recognition that he be considered, in that category. I think he is, somewhere near that level.
Been a big week for the coaching fraternity, losing Stuart Dew. I suppose, what was your reaction seeing that all unfold? I always feel, I guess I feel a level of sympathy towards those individuals, and I hesitate a little bit because there's no way of saying this without sounding a bit selfish, but all I can sort of think about sometimes when you see it is one day that will be me, and one day that will be my wife and my family, and it's not an easy time. Like we're very privileged to be in this position, but you do it knowing that someday your time will be up, and rarely is it perfectly amicable. I think he's done a really good job in a difficult environment, and I actually say this a little bit internally. I'm probably saying too much here, but the people that are critical of those that do the job in pioneering football states are only the people that haven't done it themselves. So anyone in Western Sydney or the Gold Coast or the northern states, full stop for that matter, have challenges that the big Melbourne clubs don't have. And I think that the job he's done should be remembered in that context. And again, speak to anyone who's been in that environment, and I count myself as one, only as a player at Brisbane, but it's different and it's harder. And if you think about it in that context, I'm sure he's got a long career in football. Contributing to that expansion in another state at any point, would that be something you consider once your time here at Geelong is done?
I doubt it. And only because, smart people would answer that question by saying you never rule anything out. I don't know how I'm going to feel next year, much less, in 5 years' time. But I just feel so good at Geelong, and I feel so honoured that they still think I'm the right person for the job. There will come a time, as I said, where that they won't feel that way, but it's very, very unlikely, if not completely implausible, that it will be me that decides that I should move on, because who wouldn't want to coach at Geelong, and who wouldn't want to be a part of this footy club? So that's when I get asked those questions, that's my go-to every time.
I guess that means that if we ask you at the end of next season, you won't be finishing up at Geelong. If it's your choice, you'll be wanting to stay on beyond next season? Yeah,
well, with the caveat that it's very hard to know how everyone will be feeling in 18 months' time. But at the moment, I just, if Geelong want me to stay for a little bit longer, I'm doing it for sure. It's the best job in footy.
You say who wouldn't want to be at Geelong. Do you think Bailey Smith would like to be at Geelong at some point?
I try not to engage in the gossip too much, and in part because I don't think it's fair on other clubs, but also for selfish reasons. Like, we'll be kind of the victim of some of that gossip at some point as well, and I'll feel just as uncomfortable talking about it in that situation. So I don't know anything about, and it's better for me. I just don't get involved in it. I've heard about it because Sarah's got the unenviable task of briefing me before these press conferences. If we didn't have that conversation, I wouldn't even be aware of it, and I think that's a better place for me to be.
Do you hear much conversation about talk about relocating games to Melbourne, and I guess what's your view on those sort of conversations outside the footy club?
Well, Sarah briefed me. I hadn't heard it, but apparently my brother answered it perfectly. It's almost as if we'd spoken about it.
Did you?
Well, over the journey we have, yeah. But there's nothing I can say that'll add to the conversation. I sort of said my piece 5 years ago, I reckon, and it's more valid now than it was then.
Just quickly on Gary Rowan.
And it was still really valid then too, probably.
We just saw Gary Rowan left before the captain's run. Is he all good?
Yeah, he had a tea time at 13th Beach. So we run a really flexible program. He'd done his stuff and he had to rush off.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, you sort of see a little sliver of what we do, but yeah, the players run a pretty self-directed program the day before the game.